Kia ora and welcome to another video in the series aimed at teaching you how to play Riftbound step by step, getting you ready for your first Nexus 9. In today's video we are going to be playing a game of, when it finishes spinning, there we go, Mono Orange Misfortune against Akali OTW. I am really excited for this matchup. It's going to be a, strong standing, dazzling Aurora Misfortune, possibly, we don't know yet, against Akali, who we have not seen a lot of, so let's get right into it. Here we are, so we are going to be playing the Akali OTW by Monk221 against the Mono Orange Misfortune by Temo Dave. Funnily enough, this is not actually a Dazzling Aurora Misfortune list. I'm going to be really excited to see what happens with it. It's got a strong combination of aggressive and defensive units, and let's see, was not expecting these as free battlefield. Sunken Temple is a great option, but actually we're going to go Forgotten Monument because it can slow down the game and maybe let it get to where it wants to be. As for the Akali, we're seeing, Spell Song is always a really nice thing. It's an exceptionally unique equipment, and we'll review that later. But we're seeing some units that we usually never see. Tryndamere Barbarian in particular is an incredibly unique decision to bring through. I am also really interested by their choices of battlefields, but we'll go Targon's Peak and we'll see a game 1 start by Akali. Opening mulligan, ooh, some really expensive options here. Expensive through power, not through energy, but a Mask of Foresight turn 1 sometimes is a really good option, and so I think we'll keep this, and we'll actually keep the Tryndamere around because this may be a really strong way to maintain point aggression. As for the Misfortune, double first mate, we probably don't need both. So we'll drop one and we'll see a punch first come out. Now we are using the Vendetta promo Nexus Knight runes with the Calm and Fury for Akali. So if we bring this out and we'll pass over, and we're using the body runes exclusively for the Misfortune. Now I really like the look of the Nexus Knight runes, however I do actually prefer in some ways the look of the, what do you call it? I've forgotten the name of it. We'll bring the Rune Runner to hand. The regular, just the Vendetta alt arts. Back over to Akali, and there's the Fury, and we'll move over to the Spectator screen and reveal Hiddens. And let's just get into the swing of things. I don't know how either of these decks are going to operate. Realistically, I'd imagine they are going to be trying to achieve, for the Akali at least, some form of gimmick when it comes to excess power, maybe a Spell Songer attached to either the Jinn to create excess energy and power, and using that in order to bring out the Tryndamere for cheap. And a combination of the Rogue Assassin, especially with the Hall of Legends, will be a really interesting combination. But for Misfortune, we are seeing a bit of a slower tempo game, and unfortunately for us, our first unit will have to be the first mate. I was really hunting for, when it came to that stack deck, a 2-drop out of it, so we could bring the 2-drop and then first mate on the second turn after moving the unit into a battlefield in order to re-ready it and bring it out again, but it is what it is. Back over to Akali, we see a Blood Rush, which says give a unit assault plus essentially 2. And it only costs 1, but you can repeat for an additional, which is quite nice. The Akali, because it is their third turn, can conquer either battlefield, but they'll conquer Targon's Peak and choose to ready the 2 Calm runes here at the end of their turn and score 2-1, because there is going to be no response out of the Akali. Then what they are going to do is they're going to tap 3 and recycle the Fury rune in order to empower their Akali legend, which says, for when it is empowered, whether it is empowered or not, you may exhaust me at action speed to move a friendly unit in a showdown to base, but if I'm empowered, ready it. The benefit of that is, because if the first mate moves in, and maybe we don't want to let the Lonely Poro die just yet, we can bring it back on the opponent's turn. Well actually it's only on your turn, so this is really more just for like if you move into a showdown and realize you're not winning it. And you know what, that's okay. But for 3 more, we'll now bring out our Akali Deadly Weapon, which if it is empowered, gets +1 might. But we'll now pass and ready those 2 runes we mentioned earlier back over to Misfortune, who is going to see that this is a 3, but this is a 3 because of the Mask of Foresight, and so that's not really a great option for us. However, what we can do is we can tap 3, recycle 1. and use Rampage. Rampage says, as an additional cost to play, you may recycle 1 body rune, which we have. Choose a friendly unit and an enemy unit. If you paid the additional cost, give your friendly unit +2, so it's now 5. And the choices for this will be the Akali Deadly Weapon and the First Mate. Because it is not attacking or defending alone, this is only a 3, not a 4, and so the First Mate will take 3 damage. Well, actually, before that resolves, at action or reaction speed, the Akali is going to respond with Discipline on their Akali, increasing it to 5 and drawing a card, which will resolve. Then at action or reaction, which unfortunately none of these cards are, that will now just be a 5 into 5, so both units will die. There we go. Then for 4, unfortunately there is not much they can do, and so they will pass over to the Akali, who will score to 2. They'll bring their Lonely Poro back, and then for all 7 recycle 2, they'll bring out their Tryndamere Barbarian, and they'll pass over to the Misfortune, who draws into a Rangar. But for 6, we're going to bring out the Rune Runner, and we'll just pass, and we'll say, hey look, the Rangar will be really useful next turn, not this turn. The Lonely Poro will move back in, and we'll choose to ready the last 2 runes, the Fury runes. Well, actually, a Fury and a Calm rune, I should say, because we're going to, for 1, 2, 3, 4, recycle 1, bring out the Jinn Murderous Artist, and then for 2, we will play out the Lonely Poro, and then ready those 2 at the end of our turn, and pass. It's a very important aspect of Targon's Peak, which says you actually have to choose which runes you have to ready at the end of your turn. This was a rules clarification for some reason or another, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter too much as long as you're not electing to ready to runes that you're about to discard. The Rune Runner, as a 5, will move into the battlefield against the Lonely Poro, which is now a 3. And the Misfortune is going to pass priority over to the Akali, who is going to tap 2 in order to play Discipline, targeting the Lonely Poro, increasing its might by 2 and drawing a card. And then the Misfortune is going to respond by tapping 2 to play at action speed Grim Resolve, giving their Rune Runner +3 this turn and gaining 2 experience. And that means that the Rune Runner will win, the Lonely Poro will die, but it died alone, so the Akali gets to draw a card. And they do have 1 extra rune, but obviously there is no reason to give a defending unit Assault this turn, and so their only real option was nothing, because it also wasn't their turn. Now, the Rune Runner will remain at an 8 until the end of the turn, and for 1, 2, 3, a Ravenbloom Prefect will come out, which says, when an opponent plays a gear, you may banish me to banish it. It's really important to note that this has been in contention regarding the combination of Not So Fast, which says if a enemy spell or ability chooses a friendly unit or gear, you can counter it. And people have noted that this does not require you to choose, because it is saying, hey look, there is only 1 valid choice, and so we're not choosing. We are just saying, hey, you played a gear, I'm going to get rid of my unit, you have to get rid of that gear. I'm not choosing that gear. And so Not So Fast has been determined to not counter the ability of Ravenbloom Prefect, and with 5 runes remaining, it goes over to Akali, who has some really nice options available to them, but they're going to begin by tapping 3, recycling 1, in order to play out Spellsonger. Now Spellsonger will be a 1 and recycle 1 Calm rune in order to group it onto Tryndamere. Tryndamere says, when I conquer after an attack, if you assign 5 or more excess points of damage, and I'll reduce the Rune Runner back down to 5, I score a 1 point. Spellsonger duplicating that would say if you conquer with 5 or more excess damage to enemy units, you actually score 2 points now. So what we could do is we could move the Jinn and the Tryndamere in, and conquer with a combined total of 12 against this 5, and hope that the opponent has no way to bolster their unit. Or we could conquer with the Tryndamere alone and score for 9 and use Blood Rush duplicated in order to bolster it up from 9 to 13 solo. And in that case, even in the worst circumstances of, double punch first, it's still going to be a really close battle. So we've got a few options available to us. We realise that if we were to play the Mask of Foresight, the Ravenbloom Prefect may banish or it may not, so it's a gamble in that respect. But also, we can just use Akali's Rogue Assassin ability to bring the Tryndamere back if we feel like the Ruin Runner is going to be too aggressive. So we'll move in, and then at action speed we'll tap 2 runes in order to play Blood Rush, targeting this twice, which will increase it from an 8 plus the Mask of Foresight 9 by 4 up to 13. Then we will pass priority over to the Ruin Runner, who is going to go, hey look, I've got no real way to combat 13, but I know if I let you exceed 5 points of combat damage, I will be conceding 2 points, which is scary. And as such, I'll pay plunging first on my Ruin Runner, putting up to 10. Now I did just realise I never actually gave the Misfortune the necessary points, so I must apologise for that. It is actually the first time that the Misfortune should be scoring this turn, and then as for the Akali, they will be at the correct number of points until they conquer this turn, because they've only conquered and held. Oh no, actually they should be at 3, my apologies, because they did technically move in with the Lonely Poro that did die. So for 10 to 13, the Akali is going to go, hey, I'd win this, but do I get all the value I want out of it? No. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to exhaust the Akali and bring back the Tryndamere, and because I'm empowered I'll ready it. And that will resolve the combat, and this will remain at 10 until the end of the turn. The next thing that will happen is the Jinn will move over to this battlefield, and there is no response out of the Misfortune, and so they'll score to 4, and on the move trigger they add 1 energy and 1 power, and using that 1 energy, that 1 power and another power, they're going to, not actually using, because that's only a 1/1, the Shuriken Flip targeting the Ruin Runner, which says deal 2 damage to an enemy at a battlefield, then move a friendly unit. We are going to move the Tryndamere in after dealing 2 damage to the Ruin Runner, which means it has 8 health. Even though it has 10 might, it has 8 health, which means that when we deal all 13, we'll have in combination dealt 15, which will be 5 excess to the opponent. There is unfortunately not much the Misfortune can do about this matter, and so their Ruin Runner will die, and the Akali will have dealt 5 excess damage, because as I mentioned, they already had 2, so we deal all 13 on excess, and so we get a point for the conquer and then 2 more points for the Tryndamere, putting us up to 7. And our Tryndamere is still readied, and so we'll bring it back and it will exhaust. We'll move in the Lonely Poro, and then we will, at the end of our turn, be able to ready 2 because we conquered. We'll then tap our last 2 runes to play Mask of Foresight, which will be not chosen by Ravenbloom, and so at the end of the turn we'll ready 2 and pass over to the Misfortune. Now the Misfortune is going to be in a very awkward position, but they realise they've not got many options left to them, unfortunately, and so for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 recycle 1, they're going to bring out Rengar as a 6 against the Jinn's 6, because there are the 2 Masks of Foresight. And then for 1, we're going to see the Misfortune play out a stacked deck, look at the top 3 cards of their main deck, and see another Rengar. They can't afford this turn. Really, the only option they have is playing out a Mystic Poro. Well, actually, play the Rengar to hand, recycle the rest, resolve. 6 to 6, the Akali is going to allow that to die, and the Rengar will also die. The Ravenbloom Prefect will move in, but it's a 3 to 4, and so 4, 1, recycle 1, 2, 3, 4. The bullet time will come out, targeting the Lonely Poro. Because they moved into the battlefield first, it does gain the +2, so that was a misplay by me, but the Lonely Poro will now die unless we tap for 2 a not so fast, which will counter that regardless. And so the Ravenbloom Prefect will die, and it'll be passed over to the Akali, who will score to 7. And that is game 1 down. That was a really absolute demon of a Tryndamere coming out on the side of the Akali. That was a really nice set of plays that were capable because of Shuriken Flip and because of the Akali legend. So looking now at what we could do instead moving forward, the ability to use Twilight Shroud to prevent the Rampage, but that's actually at slow speed and so is Rampage. Perfect Execution is the same thing. Falling Star would be quite nice as a way to stop the smaller units that were being played out, but in reality the biggest issue for us was actually Ruin Runner. So we might need to just keep it as is and see how a game 2 is going to fare against Candlelit Sanctum. As for the Misfortune, well, they don't have any mind units. This would be strong if they were doing anything with their base, but in all honesty, I think double Abandon in place of double Gust, because they're not playing a large number of small units, and so we'll see maybe at a Sunken Temple, because we'll be going first, whether that changes things up. And let's see at the Mulligan stage, Misfortune, oh, the Irresistible Faithfolk is so good to see, and some strong additions come the next turn, so we'll keep that hand. As for the Akali, no units, so we might have to say goodbye to the Shuriken flip of all things, and maybe the Blood Rush as well, and hope for some units, which we did. We got a Mournful Faithfolk. Mournful Witness. So for 2, we'll play out the Irresistible Faithfolk and pass over to the the Akali, who will tap 2, play out a Mournful Witness, and then they will pass, and we'll move over to the spectator screen where we can see that the Misfortunes drew into an Abandon. Then what they're going to do is they're going to move their Irresistible Faithfolk over to the Candlelit Sanctum and choose to bring in the Mournful Witness. And then for 2, they're going to play a Grim Resolve on their Irresistible Faithfolk, increasing its might by 3 and gaining 2 experience. Now, I don't know if this deck has any need for the experience, but it's important to keep track of. Unfortunately for the Akali, there is nothing the Mournful Witness can do to survive that, and so the Conquer will go through, the Candlelit Sanctum trigger will occur, allowing the Misfortune to look at the top 2 cards of their main deck, change the order or discard. We're actually going to put the other Punch First to the bottom of the deck, and keep the first mate at the top. And then with 2 runes remaining, we're going to tap those in order to play out a Mystic Pro, which says Vision. You may look at the top card of your main deck. We already know what it is, so we don't need to worry about that. And then we will pass over to the Akali, who draws into a Twilight Reveler. And we're actually going to tap 3 in order to bring out that Twilight Reveler, and we're going to pass with 2 up, just in case we need to not so fast, or use the Discipline. Now, the Irresistible Faithfolk goes back down to 1, and we are going to see... So what we see right now is our Twilight Reveler is at 3 might, our Irresistible Faithfolk is at 1 might. We have a way to Punch First it, as well as we could equip a Bone Shiver for 4 energy, 1 body rune. If we did that, that would increase it to 3, then we would have access to Punch First with the remaining, and so that would increase it to 8. So unless there was a way for the opponent to counter the Not So Fast trigger, counter the Irresistible Faithfolk trigger with things such as Not So Fast, which would burn them out, their Twilight Reveler would die. But regardless, we could also, if they chose not to, we don't have to play Punch First, and so we'll tap 3 to bring out Bone Shiver, and then we'll tap 1, recycle 1 in order to group it onto the Irresistible Faithfolk, increasing its base might by 3, and then we'll exhaust Misfortune's Legend ability, which says you may give a unit ganking this turn. So the Irresistible Faithfolk will now move over to this battlefield, and it will choose its target of Twilight Reveler, and the Akali realizes, hey look, that's a 3 into 3. At best they're trying to kill me, at best they're trying to trade, at worst they're trying to kill me. So if I'm the Akali in this perspective, I'm going, do I Discipline and try and force out more spells, or do I Not So Fast and try and save the only unit I have? The unfortunate reality is the Akali needs to save this unit, and so they're going to choose to Not So Fast, which will resolve because it is an ability, and so the Irresistible Faithfolk's trigger will fizzle, and so instead they will just conquer at 3 might, but when I conquer, channel 1 rune exhausted, so they'll tap 1 exhausted, and they will also conquer to 2, because their unit is not mighty, they cannot trigger that ability. And then what they can do after that is, because they don't have much more to their name, they will just pass. Over to the Akali, who is going to now read Red Brambleback. So 4 energy, 1 fury power. Your conquer effects for conquering here trigger an additional time. When I conquer, buff a friendly unit. So we could move in with Twilight Reveler against the Irresistible Faefolk, but we see the 2 runes up and we know that Grim Resolve is in the deck, which is a +3, so it'd go up to 6 quite comfortably. Punch first would push it up to an 8, so our 3 + 2, 5 is not going to cut the mustard. The Akali Deadly Weapon does not kill it before we move in, and so the only real strong option we have here is maybe playing out. Actually no, this is only on attack. It readies another unit, and so we could move the Twilight Reveler in, readying, let's say, the Akali Deadly Weapon, and force out another spell from the Misfortune, and we know they only have 3 cards in hand, so if one of those is a strong spell, then at least we've pushed that into the... we've at least removed it from the optional cards. So this is a balancing act where I think for us, bringing out Akali Deadly Weapon and attacking with the Twilight Reveler, and then we can use at action speed the Rogue Assassin to bring back the Twilight Reveler once it bolsters, if it chooses to, or we just trade out and the Bone Shiver goes on to the Mystic Poro, or we just use we bring out the Akali for 3, we move in the Twilight Reveler, increase its might by 2 up to 5, which will leave us with 1 rune remaining, and also mean that we can spend that 1 rune in order to pay for the draw 1, and if they decide to bolster, we can bring it back. And I think that's what we'll do. We'll tap 3 to bring out Akali Deadly Weapon. We will move, and that says when I attack, ready another friendly unit, and a showdown has begun, so that will occur. And then we'll tap 2 in order to play Discipline, increasing our might to 5 and drawing a card. And then we are going to pass priority over to the Misfortune, who could, if they wished, played Abandon, but there's not much reason to abandon the Discipline because, well, we can just tap 1, recycle 2 to play the Punch first and increase our might by 8, and it'll pass back over to the Akali, who will exhaust and bring back their Twilight Reveler. And then all that's really happened is the Akali has burnt a card and we've burnt a card, and we continue to hold the Sunken Temple, which is quite exciting for us. Then what we could do is we could move the Akali over to this battlefield, and because we can't empower it this turn, it would remain at a 3 rather than a 4, and the Mystic Poro, we know that the Irresistible Faefolk can gank with the combination of Misfortune's ability, so this would be a 3 into our 3, and at worst it would trade, at best they would get a conquer. So I think we just have to maintain our current position, and they will pass over to the Misfortune, who will score to 3. They will tap 4 to play out a Vex Apathetic, and then exhaust the Misfortune in order to give the Irresistible Faefolk ganking again this turn, which there will be no response, and so they will score to 4, and on conquer, channel 1 rune exhausted. Then they are just going to pass. They're going to say, hey look, I've done all I need to do. I'm going to trigger the Candlelit Sanctum ability to look at the top 2 cards of my deck and see another Vex Apathetic. So we're actually going to put both of these to the... we'll put the Vex Apathetic to the bottom, and we'll keep the Spirit Wheel because that's quite nice to see. And we're just going to pass. We're going to say, hey look, I've got enough for Abandon if you do something fun. The Vex Apathetic means that any unit that is played this turn is stunned immediately, and so we are going to begin by tapping 3, recycling 1 to bring out a Spellsonger. We are then going to tap 2, recycle a Fury in order to empower our Akali Deadly Weapon, and then we're going to tap a Calm, recycle a Calm in order to group the Spellsonger onto the Akali Deadly Weapon, which now means that it has +2 might, not just +1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because the Spellsonger, it says, as this is attached to a unit, copy that unit's text to this equipment's effect text for as long as it is attached. And what it means is everything that is written on the card is duplicated. Obviously, things such as accelerate or empower costs will not be duplicated, nor would hidden costs be duplicated because, well, that makes no sense, but things such as when I move and the benefit of empower. So when it moves, it will deal 2 damage twice to a unit at a battlefield, and has +2 might. So it will now move to this battlefield, targeting the Vex Apathetic twice, and the Vex Apathetic will die. There is nothing the Misfortune can do about that. And the Akali will score 2-1. The next thing that they will do is they will tap 2 to preemptively play Discipline, targeting their Twilight Reveler. And the Misfortune is going to tap 2 in order to abandon that one because they realize that there are no more runes for the Akali. And so they kind of want to save this Irresistible Fey Folk, and they'd rather force the trade than anything. And so the abandon will resolve. The Misfortune, sorry, the Akali, no, I was right, the Misfortune can look at the top card of their deck, they still see it's a Spirit Wheel, and that will resolve, and the Discipline will come back to the Akali's hand. Then the Akali is going to choose, well, they don't really want to continue allowing the opponent to keep on scoring. That's the scary part. And so they are going to just force it to die. They're going to say, hey, look, my 3 into your 3, we both know you can't do anything, so the Irresistible Fey Folk will die, and the Bone Shiver goes back to base, and the Twilight Reveler will die. And the Akali will pass over to the Misfortune, who draws into that Spirit Wheel and will tap 2 in order to bring it out. Spirit Wheel says, when you choose a friendly unit, you may pay 1 energy and exhaust this to draw a card. So it's just a nice way of kind of increasing the amount of draw potential. Then we are going to pay 1 energy and 1 body rune in order to group the Bone Shiver onto the Mystic Poro. Now this is a case where you choose a friendly unit, so we're then going to pay 1 and exhaust the Spirit Wheel in order to draw an additional card. We draw into another first mate, goodness me. So we've seen all 3. We recycled 1 at the start of the game, and we've now seen 2. We are now going to move the Mystic Poro over to this battlefield as a 4, because then the Bone Shiver gives +2, so it's a 4. And there is no response, and so the Misfortune will score to 5, and they will choose to look at the top 2 cards of their main deck, see an Irresistible Fey Folk in a stacked deck. They know if they use the stacked deck, they will see the Irresistible Fey Folk, so they're going to change the order so that they don't have to get rid of the additional 2 cards. And then we are going to exhaust the Misfortune Legend in order to give the Mystic Poro ganking this turn. And then we're going to tap 3 in order to play a first mate, readying that unit. And what we could do if we wanted is swing in and maybe threaten another ability, but there's nothing we can do, so we're actually just going to bring this back, and we will pass. It is now over to the Akali, who has scored to 2. It's pretty scary for them because they've not got much going on for them, unfortunately. We will see for 2... 3-4, a Jinn Murderous Artist coming out, and then we will see the Akali come back. Actually, no, we won't see the Akali come back. The Akali will stay there and will pass. And the reason for that is we hold the Discipline in hand. We see that there's a 4 here, a 3 here, so a 7 in total. We can match that 7 quite comfortably, and losing this Spell Song on the Akali Deadly Weapon would be a shame, but we would be able to relocate it onto the Jinn Murderous Artist, which would actually be from a 5, would move it down to a 4, but would gain multiple energy and multiple power, which means we don't have to deramp as much. As for the Misfortune, they're going to tap 2 to play out the Irresistible Fey Folk, and then tap 3 in order to ready the Irresistible Fey Folk. And because they chose a friendly unit, they're going to pay 1 in order to draw another card, which is a stacked deck, which we will now play in order to draw a look at the top 3 cards, and we see one of them is a Bullet Time, which is really cool, and I'm going to show you why. We're going to bring that to hand, because the Punch First is incredible, but the Bullet Time is going to be so much bigger. Now the Irresistible Fey Folk is going to move in and choose to target Jinn Murderous Artist, bringing it into this battlefield. The Akali has no way to stop that, but on move it creates 1 energy and 1 power. Then, at action speed, for 1 energy, they're going to play Bullet Time. Now, they do not have to say how much they are going to recycle until after the resolution of the ability. So, the Misfortune is going to choose, or the Akali is going to choose to pay that 1 power, or that 1 energy floating in the 1 already, in order to discipline their Akali, which will increase it to 7 and draw a card. Then they are going to pass priority over to the Misfortune, who is going to realize they have to now pay 6 energy, or 6 power, sorry, to kill this Akali, and for each time that they, if they were to choose, they'd have to pay deflect, but because they're not choosing, it's all of them, they don't have to pay the deflect. It's worth noting on that. So they have to pay 6, and that will kill the Irresistible Faith Folk, but it will kill the opponent's board. And so for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they will now bullet time, killing the Jinn and reducing the Akali down to 1 health, in which the Akali will die and trade with the Irresistible Faith Folk, and then the Mystic Poro will move in, conquer 2/6, and channel 1 rune exhausted. And because they can, they'll move the first mate over here, conquering to 7, and look at the top 2 cards of their main deck, see a stacked deck, which they'll move to first position, and the Doran's Blade they can leave as a draw. And then with only 2 runes remaining and no cards in hand, they have to pass over to the Akali, who unfortunately cannot stop this. They have no way, because they did not draw a Shuriken Flip, to prevent the Misfortune from holding both battlefields. They needed to draw a Shuriken Flip into pretty much another Shuriken Flip. As such, unless this top card, yeah, there's nothing they can do, they will be eliminated, and they will start game 3, where we can now go over to the sideboard again. And for the Akali, they did have a much worse time. The addition of Zonya's will help them if they can hide it at a battlefield before the bullet time. The other addition that may be really beneficial is, well, no, there's not many things that are beneficial. Falling Star would be purely just to kill the Irresistible Faith Folk earlier. So I think we'll bring in one of them, and we'll drop the Red Bramble back as just temporarily. I see the value in it, I just don't think it's what it needs to do right now. And then our last battlefield is the Hall of Legends. Now over to Misfortune, who, you know, Ravenbloom Prefect is great, we'll keep 2 in the board, but the opponent didn't actually play their gear at the end of the day because they just didn't see it, so it's a bit of a hit and a miss. Sabotage is a really nice addition, going up to, actually we won't go up to 3, it's a bit excessive. I'm just looking if we need another Rampage, because we have 2. We'll drop one on we'll add one and drop a punch first. And our last battlefield is Mystic Vortex, which is during showdowns here, cards with reaction costs, which we know the Akali has quite a few of, costs an additional power to play. The Akali will go first because the Misfortune won, and their mulligan is looking great for them, so they'll keep that hand. As for the Misfortune, double Irresistible Faith Folk is a little intense, so we'll mulligan 1 out, and we will see a stacked deck. That's great for them. Turn 1, Mournful Witness, pass over to the Misfortune, who is going to first play a stacked deck, sees another Vex Apathetic come to hand, which is, you know, it is what it is. We'll put the Bone Shiver to hand, and then for 2 we'll see the Irresistible Faith Folk come out, and we'll move over to the spectator screen to see this resolve. Ooh, that's a... you don't need to see Mystic Poro that big. Over to the Akali, who is now going to... why is that one broken? Sorry, I've just realized you can't actually see the points. I'm so sorry. Let's see, is it going to work now, or are we going to have an issue? One moment. There we are. It just sometimes gets a little iffy because I have so many copies of TCG Arena active at once. But now we can see the points and we can see the cards. You haven't missed too much, thankfully. But it is the Akali's turn. They're going to move the Mournful Witness into the Hall of Legends and score to 1. Then they're going to tap 1, recycle 1 in order to play Charm, moving the Irresistible Faith Folk into their battlefield with the Mournful Witness. And then the Mournful Witness will kill the Irresistible Faith Folk. Now you might be asking, why would you de-ramp so quickly? And the answer to that is, well, A, it stops the Irresistible Faith Folk from having the advantage when the Misfortune will have runes to their name, and B, Mournful Witness wants to see combat in order to go from +2, go from a 2 to a to a 4 because of the +2 for seeing combat that it was in. Then with 3 runes remaining, we'll see 2 more for another Mournful Witness, and we will pass over to the Misfortune, who is now for 1, 2, 3, 4 going to play out a Vex Apathetic, and then for 1 recycled, they're going to play Sabotage, seeing the opponent's hand, and can choose a non-unit card from it, which will be the Bone Shiver, and that will be put to the bottom of the deck. Oh, that is not true, because that is the Misfortune's own hand. They're going to look at the opponent's hand and see the only option is Blood Rush, and so that will be put to the bottom of the deck. That is an oopsie. And then we'll pass back over to Akali, who is going to score to 2. They're going to move their Mournful Witness. They're going to move their Mournful Witness over to Mystic Vortex, and then score to 3. And then for 3, 4, we're going to see a Stellarcorn Herder come out, which is a really nice card. Honestly, I do like Stellarcorn Herder, and we'll actually move the Mournful Witness back at the end of the day because we don't need to hold that battlefield. We don't need to hold to 5. In response, for 1, 2, 3, and then the Bone Shiver comes out, and then for 4, recycle 1, we will group the Bone Shiver onto the Vex, who will then go to 6, move into the 2, the Mournful Witness will die, the Vex will conquer that battlefield, scoring to 1 and channel 1 Rune Exhausted for the Bone Shiver's trigger. And then for 2 more, to pay for the recycle, we will see a Doran's Blade come out and grouped onto the Vex as well, increasing its might to 8. And they will pass. Now this 8 might Vex is a terrifying creature, but the reason they had to put so much in is because if they left it as 6, moving in the Mournful Witness and the Stellarcorn would kill it. At this moment, they need to do as much as they can in order to prevent the death of their Vex for at least a turn. The Akali is going to realize that, and they're going to tap 3 in order to bring out Akali Deadly Weapon. And then they're going to pay to recycle 1 in order to empower the Akali Deadly Weapon. And so it is now a 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And when it moves in, it will deal 2 damage. So by itself, it can deal 6 damage. Now, if we pay 1 recycle a Fury Rune, we can Shuriken Flip into this battlefield, dealing 2 damage to a unit. We do have to pay the deflect on that, so we'll pay a Fury. And the Vex will take 2 damage, and then we'll move a friendly unit into this battlefield, and the Shuriken Flip will resolve. The Akali's ability will be added to the chain, which says when I move, you may deal 1 damage, unless I'm empowered, then deal 2. And we must pay for the deflect on that as well, but the Vex now takes 4 damage in total. And then it is a 4 to 4. The Misfortune is completely exhausted, and as such, they will trade out with the Akali dying, but so will the Vex, which is a massive blow to the Misfortune because they burnt so much on that, but so did the Akali. Now they'll move his Stellarcorn Herder over to Mystic Vortex, and on trigger of the move ability, will draw 1 card, and they'll conquer to 4. And they're actually going to hold back and say, hey look, I could move the Mournful Witness and score to 5. But I know that the more I do, the weaker I'm going to become. And they actually played that really well, because for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, recycle 1, a Rangar will come out and kill the Stellarcorn Herder, and the Misfortune will score to 2. Then for 1, recycle 1, they're going to group the Bone Shiver onto the Rangar, increasing it from a 6 to an 8, and then recycle 1 more in order to group the Doran's Blade up to a 10. It's worth noting that while they are only holding the 1 battlefield, they just have access to ganking, so it's not the end of the world for them to prioritize this type of high aggression playstyle. Now, for 1, 2, 3, a Twilight Reveler will come out, and then the Mournful Witness will move to the Hall of Legends, scoring to 5. And unfortunately, there's not much that the Akali can do at this moment, because while they can technically, from flow, deal... Well, actually, they can't afford the flow because it's a 3, not a 2. I thought it was a 3. If they did have 3, they would Shuriken Flip, dealing 2 damage, and then move in, the Mournful Witness for 4? It would just be 6. They have no way to kill the Rangar, but they also need to continue maintaining point aggression, because next turn, 3, 4, they'd be tied, and they have no real way to currently answer this Rangar yet. But they will first tap 2, recycle 1 Fury in order to bring out the Vi Destructive. Vi has recycle 1 from your trash, give me +1 this turn. That can be done as many times as you want, and as such, at the moment, they would be able to recycle all 5 to move this from a 3 to an 8, which would be enough to begin, especially with the addition of Perfect Execution for Assault 3, they'd be looking at 11 minimum next turn with the active Defy. So it's not the end of the world for them to be putting themselves so quickly down. Now, Misfortune will go to 3, and they'll begin by tapping 4 to bring out a Vex Apathetic, and then they will exhaust the Misfortune Legend to give the Rangar ganking and will move over. And the 10 into the 4 Mournful Witness, the Rangar will kill it and go to 4, channel 1 rune exhausted for the Bone Shivers trigger, and they can, if they wished, ready for 1 energy the Misfortune, but there's no reason to do that. The last thing they will do is to pay 2 to bring out a Doran's Blade, and they'll recycle 1 to group it onto the Vex Apathetic, pushing it to 6 might this turn, and pass over to the Akali, who, like I said, has got a few options for the name, but it's about what can they do, really. So to begin, we are going to see for 1, 2, 3, recycle 1, Perfect Execution coming out on the Vi. That will push the Vi to a 6 this turn on attack, and put 1 more card in the trash. Then they are going to choose of those cards to return Mournful Witness, Charm, Stellacorn Herder, the other Mournful Witness, and their Akali Deadly Weapon, which is 5, from the trash to the bottom of the deck. And the only reason they're not choosing all of them is because they want to leave those last 2 cards with flow in their trash so they can use them later. But because they did 5, that'll push the Vi up to 11. They see the Misfortunes tapped out, and so their 11 will move into this battlefield and kill the Rangar. Then the Bone Shiver and Doran's Blade will go back to base. The Vi will have conquered to 6. And, well, what can they do next? They can, if they wished, leave the Vi there, and it will go back down to a 3, or they could attack with the Twilight Reveler into the Vex Apathetic, and that will trigger a move ready a friendly unit, which would be the Vi, and then we can bring back the Twilight Reveler back to base, meaning that we would save the Vi and save the Twilight Reveler, and so that's what we'll do. We'll move in, attack trigger will begin, and then we'll tap the Akali to bring the Twilight Reveler back and the Vi Destructive back. If we so wished, we could have empowered, and we should have, so we'll actually pretend that we hadn't done that yet, so it'll be like this. We will empower first the Akali for 1, 2, 3, recycle 1 in order to empower it, and then when we move in the Twilight Reveler, that will ready the Vi, and we'll bring that back. Then we'll use the Akali Legend to bring back the Twilight Reveler readied. Then we can move the Twilight Reveler in, which will ready again the Vi Destructive. The Twilight Reveler will die into the Vex Apathetic, but then for an 11 swing, we can see the Vex Apathetic will die, and the Doran's Blade goes back to base, and the Akali will hold to 7. That does mean they are completely tapped out, but it might just be enough. For 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, recycle 2, we will see Misfortune Captain come out, accelerated. This says the first time I move each turn, you may ready something else that's exhausted, but there's nothing else the Misfortune can pay for. So for 1, they are going to exhaust 1, recycle 1, group the Bone Shiver onto the Misfortune, increasing its might to 7. It's important to note that the Vi is back down to a 3. And the 7 will swing into the 3, the Vi will die, and the Misfortune will score to 5 and channel 1 rune exhausted. Then they'll use that 1 rune exhausted to group the Doran's Blade, increasing their Misfortune to 9, and they'll pass. Over to the Akali, who for 1, 2, 3, 4, recycle 1 is going to bring out a Jin Murderous Artist, not Virtuoso, that's their legend, and pass over to Misfortune, who scores to 6, exhaust. They don't even need to give the Misfortune ganking, they're just going to move over and score to 7. Then for 1, 2, they'll bring out a Mystic Poro, which will allow them to look at the top card of their main deck and see it as a Grim Resolve. They're going to put that to the bottom, they don't need it just yet. Then for 2 more, they're going to bring out another Mystic Poro in order to look at the top card and see it's a Rampage. They are going to keep that, however, because that might be really important soon. And they will pass over to Akali, who needs to be able to conquer both battlefields or hold 1. They see the absolute monster that is this Misfortune, currently at 9, could be at 11 at a win, but the Misfortune, if they hold, wins. So for 2, Discipline comes out, targeting the Jin Murderous Artist, drawing a card. Oh, that is That is not what you want to see, unfortunately. That, I think, will secure the loss for the Jin. They will move in, create 1 energy and 1 power. And then, yeah, no, it's it. That is it. Well, actually, they're going to then tap the Akali in order to bring back the Jin Murderous Artist and ready it, which will create an additional power and energy. Then from their trash, they have access to Perfect Execution, which is a 3 energy, 1 power. Because they've got the 2 floating energy and 2 power, they're going to use 2 and 1 power in order to play Perfect Execution from trash, giving the Jin Murderous Artist plus 3 this turn, so it's a 6 from the discipline up to 9. That will resolve, removing the Perfect Execution, and then they were going to use 1 energy, 3 energy, sorry, and 1 power to use the flow of the Shuriken Flip, targeting the Misfortune, dealing 2 damage to it. That will now resolve and move in the Jin Murderous Artist as a 9, creating an additional power and energy, and the 9 into 9. Oh, it's just not enough. So next would be for 2, a Grim Resolve would come out, but then that will just be defied by the Jin. But unfortunately, a 9 into 9 just means that the Misfortune does die, but so does the Jin. And then they pass over to the Misfortune, who just moves 1 into here and draws, and moves 1 into here and conquers 2-8. That was an incredibly interesting end of game scenario. I think that both of these decks have an incredible amount of opportunity to really show their capacity, which you don't often get a lot of, which is quite cool to see. If we go over and look at the sideboards themselves, or the main decks themselves, you can kind of piece together maybe what they're after. The Misfortune is all about high aggression with the Irresistible Fey Folks, the First Mates, the Rangars. You've got the combination of Bullet Storms and the Ravenboom Prefix, as well as the Ruin Runners and Bone Shivers. You've got all these different adjustments that can be made to create each unit into its own terrifying carry. The Doran's Blade I completely disregarded. Ended up being a massive addition. This one does have a bit of a sideboard. It mentions the current games they've been playing. It's gone through 47 variations. The most recent variation they had in Kashan, apparently, kind of cool. But no, I really love this Misfortune. I think Mono Orange is a really fun play style. Obviously, it limits you in the inability to play certain really strong purple cards, such as Star-Crossed Rebuke, your Ride the Wind, stuff like that, but it does not need it. It did so well without it. As for the Akali, I see there are so many mechanical opportunities that I was not able to utilize. No description, no guide. But I see this as, you know, Tryndamere Barbarian is such an underutilized card. Same with Murderous Artist, same with Brambleback. These are cards you do not see a lot of. And with Akali, being able to have a combination of Tryndamere Barbarian and Spellsonger, like we saw game 1, was incredibly powerful. I am super excited to see what happens with these in the future, but as per usual, we will just have to wait and see. Anyway, I hope that has been interesting for you. I hope that's discussed some of the interesting mechanics when it comes to combos and prioritization. And yes, we did see a bit of, oh, I realized I messed up, let's reverse that. But sometimes you're allowed to do that in a real game. Anyway, I hope that has been helpful and informative. And if you've liked the video, feel free to like and subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next video.